works, because if it doesn't, I just screwed up another chunk of DOM. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thank you for tuning in to Vet Built. I'm your host Chris. Thanks for coming along on today's episode. Today's episode, we go through building the transmission and transfer case tube structure. All right. I tried building this at least half a dozen times, and every time I ran into issues, and I just couldn't get the vision that I had in my head into reality, and it was really pissing me off. There was a couple of times where I did lose my cool, but thankfully the camera wasn't rolling, and I had to go back to square one. I was waiting on material. I thought I could get it done with the material that I had, and I kept cutting material, bending material, and then having to throw away said material, all because a number of different factors. One thing that was kicking my ass was Bentech. I lost my shit at one point with Bentech. I called them up as best as I could. I left a calm-ish message. I got to give it to them. They called me back the next day. I did end up calling after hours. The gentleman that I was talking to, I believe his name was Ryan, and I told listen, before you say a word, you need to understand that when it comes to computers, I'm dumb as a stump. And I really am. I don't fully understand the capabilities and how they work and all that other stuff. And I'm like, I need this to work because I'm trying to produce, and I showed him and told him what's going on. And as soon as I owned up to my own shortcomings, you could hear the conversation change on both sides. And then we started working as a team. He told me what I had to do. We got things going. And from there on, it was just a matter of, well, one, the software wasn't up to date. Two, there was a little bit of lack of training on my part. But also there was a few things on the back end that Ryan just sat there and told me how to change. And now everything's working great. So thank you, Ryan, over at Bentech, for taking the time to deal with me and get all that sorted out. And yeah, other than that, I got a few thank yous that I'm going to be saying again at the end of the video. But things are in the right direction. We're moving along, so let's hop into it. Yeah, let's get going. These points right here are one of the few things that I used from the very first iteration all the way through to what I ended up with at the end of the video. You'll see. What I did was I just went straight to cardboard CAD, and I started making myself just a simple template so I can close in the back of these 4-link brackets that I got from TMR Customs, and went from there. Came back after I cut it just to double check, make sure I have a nice lip the entire way around, so when this is in the rotisserie I can weld it out. And then from there went to the other side and cleaned everything up. And double checked that the same template for the passenger side is going to work on the driver's side. These are CNC fabricated parts. There's no reason they shouldn't. All right, I got to admit that went a lot faster and turned out better than I thought it was going to be. So this is probably one of the most complicated bends, fit ups, whatever the hell you want to call it, that I've done in a long time. Mainly because I haven't touched this level of intricacy, plain and simple. So let's show you where we're at. So you've seen the slow progress as we were sweeping back and forth on everything. And before we kick off, there's two things that you need to keep in mind, and that is reference. Reference, reference, reference. That's more than two things. Some of you are saying, Chris, that's the same thing. Your stutter is going to like the next level and you're saying whole words over and over again. No. Reference, reference, reference. When you're doing stuff like this, the more you can control your zeros, the better your outcome's going to be. Let me show you what I'm talking about. So, this here, okay, that's a 0. So this ensures that this and that bar are both on the same plane. And then this guy here, all right, fits the two of them. So that keeps the bottom. Next, you want to make sure that this isn't too cattywampus, all right, which is why I use these Fireball Tools squares, all right. I understand not everybody has these. They're not the cheapest thing in the world, but for stuff like this, it's worth the investment. So I wanted this face to be parallel with this face. So what I did was I took this one here, I drilled 3 holes into it, screwed it down with it flush up against here, and then this just becomes a sliding reference point, okay? You can do this with anything as long as they are square and you trust them, all right? I'm not sure what else you could use, but use your imagination, folks. So what I did was I sat there. At first, I placed this bar on top like that, and then I measured the end points. You can see that's where one was, and then this is where the other one was. And then I just put the tube up with this here, making things square, and I just slowly trimmed. I tried to use my Grizzly tube notcher. However, once it was in there, the part was too long past the bend for the notcher to actually wrap around and not knock it out. And in hindsight, I think even if it could have, I don't think it would have been the right way to do it. I think slowly just whittling away the way I was, that was the right way to do it. So I just sat there, marked it and kept going, marked it and kept going. And then now, when I sit there, I slide this up, boom. Ooh, come on. There. There. So this is out a little bit. This is probably like an 1/8-ish in there, maybe 3/16 at the most. But I'm gonna sit here and I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit here and there. Maybe if I point the camera at me, I'm gonna tweak it a little bit here and there until it's right on the money, and then I'm gonna prep the edges and weld it in. That's a lie. I'm not gonna weld it in. I'm gonna tack weld it in because, like everything else on this chassis, I am gonna wait until it is in the rotisserie before I finish weld everything. All right? So, let's carry on. So here I've already made the initial cuts where I got rid of the bulk of the material that I want to notch out. I just did that over on the chop saw, nothing fancy, but I'm using a good marker and I'm holding it at half the included angle. So in this case here, 45 degrees, and I'm just lifting it up and lowering it, giving me the general shape that I'm going to need to knock this out. Then bring it over to the Grizzly tube notcher, hold it in place, and I use a zip disc to start slicing out a good chunk of it, and then come back with a flap disc and blend it all out. One thing to make sure of is that I'm not taking any material off the point at the bottom, because that is my stop point. That needs to be a constant. So now that I got my tube structure good and I'm happy with that, I'm coming in with some heavy cardboard and just chunking everything out to the general shape that I want, and then gonna go from there. So part of this, I am restrained by the amount of material that I have, because I don't have a lot of 1/8 material. So you're gonna see me, I just start chunking it out. And then at one point I decide to just grab the material that I have left and just use that to template the actual cardboard from, which I should have just done right from the hop. But once that's done, we'll head over to the desk and start laying out all my dimple dyed holes, all that fun stuff, because at the end of the day I want this to look really good, and I want good drainage so that all of the dirt and that does land on there has somewhere to fall through to. All right, so I sat there, made a cardboard template, and like I mentioned earlier, I think I like to use some like extra heavy stock. It's just more rigid. The normal Bristol board, I find, like when you lay it down, it's like using normal writing paper. It just sinks and it's no good. Anyway, sat there. You see me lay out these holes. These are 1 5/8, all of them, and then I'm just gonna radius all this stuff here and one thing and the other like that. So I did that, transferred it then I sat there, transferred it to the only bit of, come on, there we go, the only bit of 1/8 plate that I have, and you know, on 3 sides it fits really good. I like it. It's almost weld ready. And then we get to this side here. What the hell? Well, I got ornery and didn't square up the plate before I started. So, you know, front to back it's good. I'm just gonna have to make some adjustments side to side. So it is what it is. I might have to make an adjustment front to back a little bit as well, just so it sits evenly. But other than that, I'm happy with it. And then I'm going to take some 3/16 plate, weld it to the center here, and then when I take the bracket for the MP205 and weld it onto here, then we'll be good to go. And that, ladies and germs, is where I'm calling it for this episode here. It has been a dogfight to get to this point, between not having material, trying to make do with the material that I have, back and forth and destroying perfectly good material due to lack of foresight, which I don't know why. Anyway, at this point here, I am probably 2 days away from pulling the motor and transmission out, putting the frame, chassis, whatever you want to call it, on the rotisserie and welding this puppy out. I'm going to do all that off camera because it's just welding. There's nothing really high speed, low drag about it. However, I will sit there and do a video for, like a shorts video for here on YouTube, as well as a reel for Instagram, just showing the process, all that other good stuff. And then after that, the box is going back on, the cab's going back on, all that fun stuff. And then we get to work on the sheet metal portions of the rest of this build, and hopefully start making some headway. Anyway, guys, if you haven't already, like, subscribe. Thank you to Melanie over at D3 for helping me out with a bunch of back-end stuff with, what's it called? The editing software that we both use that I'm having a brain fart on. Adobe Premiere Pro, there we go. Thank you to Steve over at D3 for just helping coax me along. I want this to look amazing, but I keep getting caught up in my own head trying to make things more complicated than they are. So thank you, Steve, for just helping, giving me those little kicks in the ass to get going. And also thank you to Steve Cannon over at the Military Biker. If you're into Harleys and stuff like that, go check him out. Awesome dude. He's local to me here, obviously, but he has helped me on the back end of YouTube, just sorting out a whole bunch of things and being that individual where I can go, hey, what does this mean and what effect does it have on the channel? And once he sat there and helped me finish setting up the whole back end, I mean, it's just a vertical trajectory right now. And I am very grateful and very thankful for everybody who's helped me along with producing all of this, as well as Liam Dunning. He's working on the logo. But I'm very grateful and appreciative for everybody who has helped me get to this point, helped me relaunch the channel. And I'm very thankful for all of you guys for liking and subscribing, both the shorts, the reels, the full episodes, everything like that. It means a lot. Thank you very much, guys. I'll talk to you guys in the next episode. Until then, cheers, stay focused.